Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mac Yak. This is episode 47. Sorry for the frazzled here. I'm not used to doing this, but welcome. And I have two screens here, so I'm gonna be looking around. But all right, this is exciting. So, welcome to Mac Yak number 47, and I'm graciously allowed to host this. I don't know who put me in charge. I think it was Greg, but. But I know he is away. He's moving, so he has to focus on that stuff. Let me know if the sound sounds okay. Let me know if my extensions are good. I think I have enough video memory in here to drive this Windows. So let me know if if we run into any problems there. So I think we're good. But yeah, so it's going to be a solo show tonight. But I have some topics and I got some questions. So we're going to hopefully do some fun things here. And I have a lovely mystery iMac here that we're going to boot up because I don't know if it works. So how about that? So, all right, good. Audio is good. All right, sweet. So hopefully this goes well. I've never streamed from this computer before, so I'm wired on Ethernet. So what could possibly go wrong? So, but how are you guys doing tonight? How are you all? I got a bunch of questions from you, so I'd like to thank you for everybody who submitted questions. I took the liberty of printing that out on my dot matrix printer. Of course I did. So we'll be getting to those in a little bit. All right, awesome. Glad everyone's here. Greg's here. Gertie's here. We got Jay. We got Ken from the Computer Clan. Got a bunch of people. Yeah, so that's we're gonna get into the iMac in a little bit. So first off, just some announcements. So Mac Yak is going to be hosted by me tonight, obviously. Next week on the 14th, we're going to be doing another live stream. Going to try and get one of the other guys in there with me, so it's not just me talking to myself. And then the week after that, we have our special anniversary show. So we have a lot of cool, exciting things to come up. So I hope that a bunch of you guys will be there to join us. And a little shout out from me, because I'm hosting, so I get to do a shout out for myself. My little Mac 84 pin didn't give it away. And my hat. I reached 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is crazy. So thank you for everybody who subscribed, liked all my videos, retweeted them, do whatever the social media thing is these days. Thank you. That's awesome. So I hope to, pass all those subscribers on to Mac Yak too. I keep promoting this podcast because it's awesome. So if you're here from Mac 84, say hello in the chat and greet these wonderful, crazy people who are watching. Yeah, woo! So I have the chats on this side. So when you see me turn my head, that means you could spam the chat because I'm looking. Oh, thank you. Thank you for all the comments. This is very cool. Yeah, some people have been here since the beginning. Awesome. Okay, cool. So, what else do we have on here? So, I have some topics. I didn't do any fancy overlays because I spent most of the time doing this, which is what this beautiful window you see up in here that I can't quite expand. But, oh well, we'll deal with that. But, thank you. Yeah, it's quite a milestone, so that's nice. I appreciate it. Too many Gregs. All right, so what I'm going to do first is talk about collecting Macintoshes, and I'm going to rely on some of you guys from the chat to give me some feedback of, thanks, Mike, of some other things. And good, it's nice to see some first timers here. Awesome. So I'm going to talk about collecting Macs first, and I want to know about you guys and what you've collected and what some of your wish list computers are. I have a little list here. Then we're going to turn to this Grape iMac here. I have no idea that this works. I plugged it in. I did not turn it on. Kind of worried that maybe the CRT will explode in my face, but if that happens, it'll make for an exciting live show. So we'll see if that works. But and after that, we're going to review our questions. And then I'm going to talk about transferring data to old Macintoshes. So you can see we're sort of a retro show here today, but we'll be talking about some other things too. So, just checking the chat, see if we have anything else going on here. Awesome. Okay, cool. So Let's get started talking about collecting Macintoshes. So, collecting them, best finds, wish lists, all that stuff. So, not one of the questions that I got, but one of the questions I get asked a lot recently, whether it's on Twitter or Instagram or a comment on my YouTube channel, is how I got all of my computers. And forgive me if some of you have heard, some of these things before, but I'll speak in little general terms here. But I get a lot of questions about where did I get my collection from, and a lot of people think that it's recent, and it's not. I've had a lot of my machines since probably the early 2000s, and even before that. I grew up with my dad, who loved his Macintosh. He had a Macintosh 2CX. That was the first Macintosh I ever used, and that was my first experience to a Mac. I think that was probably the first computer I ever touched. If not, it was very early. It was one of the first. And it had a color RGB monitor. We had an image writer to printer, so you could sort of see why I'm so passionate about these things, because they're nostalgic to me and I enjoy them. And so the Macintosh 2CX was my first foray into computing, basically. And what's cool about that is I still have it, and we have to repair it. In fact, that was my first video on Mac 84, was trying to repair that computer. And so I redid the caps on that and everything. But so I started from an early age being interested in computers, and I was always interested in drawing and art and stuff like that. And so one of the first programs I got, which I should be holding up the box here, but one of the first programs that got me into the computer was one called Easy Color Paint. And it was a color paint program for the Macintosh. And my parents had it installed on the Macintosh 2CX. So that has really opened my eyes. When I was a kid, I was like, wow, I could draw, I could paint on this thing. And I thought that was really cool. Years before I even touched Photoshop, that's what I played around with. And if you saw one of my pickup videos, I think, or one of my live streams or something, I did show some of the images that I did in that program I found from the hard drive later on. So yeah, that's where it all began. And I didn't have my own computer until probably the very late 1990s. And when I say my own computer, I have many brothers. So it wasn't just mine. We all shared everything. My dad got an old Power Macintosh 7100. Well, let me rewind back a little bit. The 2CX became the kid's computer when my dad upgraded to a computer. He got a Power Mac 7500 beige desktop. And he needed it for work. He did graphic art and design stuff. So that was his machine. And we got the 2CX. So it was slower, but we still played games on it and all that fun stuff. Yes, the iBook is sleeping. Don't disturb it. Shh. We'll get to that in a bit. And so, yeah, that's we had our kid's computer, which was, not too old, actually. And then, I don't know how, but he was bringing home stuff from work. He got a Power Macintosh 7100 from his office. I guess they were tossing it out or whatever. Because they do a lot of graphic stuff, so maybe it wasn't powerful enough to them, or maybe didn't run the latest system software, or whatever it was. So yeah, we had that. So we had that 2CX, then we later had the 7100. The 2CX was sort of unplugged, so nobody really cared too much that I brought it into my room, and basically became my computer to tinker around with. Later on, the 7100 is what I tinkered around with. So what this sort of sets up is me being interested in these machines at a very early age and having the great opportunity to tinker around with one, because it wasn't my dad's computer. I could open it up. I could, they were so easy to open up. I could open it up with maybe just a screwdriver. That's it. And then, tinker around, look at the slots inside the memory, learn what it was. And I go to the library, I'd get, one of those big, thick, Mac Secrets books from, I think it was Macworld that released them. And I just thumb through the entire thing. So I was obsessed with computers from an early age. And so what spawned the collecting of it was my interest in computers. And so years later, probably, not too much of a span, but as I grew older and I had some money from birthdays or jobs or little things like that, I would go to flea markets with my father, and there would always be, some wires or some things. I don't remember seeing computers early on, but eventually I started to see computers. And it was probably about when I was in high school that I saw a lot of computers, around that age in my life. And I met a few friends in school who were also into computers. I'm like, oh, that's cool. So I'm not the only one who's interested in computers. They were interested in PCs though, and I really, really did not use a PC up until around that point. We had PCs in school. My mother had a PC at home because she had to do work, and we just turned it into a glorified game box because that was all we could really do that. Um, so that's really what we had going. Yes, they told me the YouTube password I hacked in. That's that's why I'm running System 7 here. The security just let me slip right through. So yeah, I mean I was exposed to a PC because at school we had PCs, but I still liked the Mac. But all my friends in school would rag on me, oh, the Mac stink or whatever. And my nickname became Mac because of that. I was the only kid who they knew used a Mac, so that was my nickname for a while. Still is, actually, to some friends, which is funny. Anyway, so I met those friends and I learned about a computer show, a computer festival called the Trenton Computer Festival, and then another one in Edison, New Jersey, or Raritan, New Jersey, depending on the year. And they were basically big swap meets. And yeah, they had talks and things like that, but I was interested in the old computers. And so I would go with maybe $20, $40 in my pocket. Not a lot. Maybe I was saving up for my birthday or from Christmas, or some, holiday, some excuse that I was given money, because I didn't really have too many jobs back then. And I would go to these computer festivals, and I would just see tons of stuff. And I really didn't know a lot. I pieced together what I found on the internet and from old Apple catalogs and stuff like that. And I would see like LC2s, LC3s, Power Macs. I think the G3 was probably the newest thing out at the time that I would see there. Some iMacs. And all this stuff was pretty inexpensive, relatively speaking. But yeah, so that stuff was just everywhere. Most of it was PCs, but the thing was, since it was a PC-centric show, anybody who had Apple stuff either didn't know what it was, didn't want a lot of money for it, and wanted it gone because they didn't care for it enough or whatever. There was one group, as the years went on, would always bring Apple stuff, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is like, these are my people. Like these guys have all this Apple stuff, and if you watched Ken's Computer Clan's Vintage Apple Vault episode about the blue and white G3, you'll see, I believe that was the episode where I put the image in, but I put some screenshots, images, photos rather, of the computer festivals I used to go to. So you just see, there was like a whole table full of iMacs and G3s and stuff like that. So, yeah, that sort of sparked my interest. And so whenever I had money, every year when that show would come around, I'd get some computers, I'd get some monitors, I'd get some cables. But at the end of the show, it was usually a 2-day show. Now, unfortunately, it's only 1 day, but it's still kicking. They would basically throw everything in the dumpster. So picture this, a dumpster, about the size of a dumpster, probably the size of a school bus or whatever. Pretty tall, as tall as a school bus too, I guess. And it would be sort of laid in the back of this schoolyard. And you would hear a big boom, a big crash every once in a while. And you could probably guess what those were. Those were people throwing CRT monitors in the dumpster because they did not want to take them home. Not because they didn't work. They probably worked. They did not want to take them home. So you would just hear shh, boom, crash, and glass or whatever. And you just hear that noise. And when you first came to the flea market, you were like, what is that noise? And then you just hear those sounds, and eventually you figured out what it was. So that was kind of sad because a lot of that stuff, probably people would like to have these days. But yeah, so that sort of started my collection. That's where I got a lot of my things. Some of the greatest deals I got there was a Quadra 840AV for $5, an LC3 probably for $5, a PowerBook Duo 230 with the dock, 2 floppy drives, and the power cord for like $40. A Color Classic for $40 with the Mystic upgrade, LC motherboard. A Newton 2000 for probably like $10 or $20. An Apple Quick Take, just the list goes on and on. I like it. I look at the photos I took and I'm like, oh, I should have bought that. Oh, I should have bought that. Like all this stuff was there that I wish I got. So I'm gonna breathe for a second and read the comments because I tend to ramble. So you guys keep me in check. Yep. Yeah, the dumpster was pretty sad. Yeah, the people should be punished. Yeah, thankfully I was not in the dumpster, but some of the people who still go to this Trent to Computer Festival were there and remember when it was big, and I recognize some of their faces because um, it started to downsize around 2007 or so. And it would switch to one day. Then the flea market went from the outside football field size thing to indoors and stuff like that. But some of those guys were actually like, yeah, my daughter was in there. She was trying to grab this old Pentium tower, and I said, watch out, someone's in there, and the CRTs are coming down. Like, really speaking to these people, they have some excellent stories of that. And I'm actually trying to work with the group to preserve and archive some of their materials because they have photos, and even the previous versions of their website have a lot of cool stuff on it, but they're just not there anymore. So I'm going to work with them to try and get some photos and videos online because some of that stuff is fascinating. It's fascinating to me because I have a personal connection to it. And it is the longest running computer festival, I believe, in the world. So that's pretty cool. It's been going on, I think, this coming year, in 2020, will be their 45th anniversary. So think about that. They've had a lot of guests, Bill Gates, a lot of other people spoken there. So pretty cool stuff. I would have been in that dumpster too if I was probably not afraid of a CRT coming to smash on my head. Um, an Apple scanner is another thing I got there, which was pretty neat. But okay, so that sort of answers where I got my collection from. Where do I find recent items? So this is a question I get asked a lot from people who are looking to get into collecting computers, and they may not live near a recycling center or Goodwill or something. But I'm just going to give you some ideas of what I do. So first off, anybody who's watched Mac Yak before, and I'll repeat it for some of the people who are here for the first time, are very much aware of what we call the eBay effect. So the eBay effect is essentially somebody doing a search on eBay, seeing an item that they want to sell, seeing a crazy amount of money that they're asking for it, an asking price, not a selling price or a completed price, but an asking price. Let's say, for an example, an iMac G3, $300. Let's make that crazy search there. So I have an iMac G3 here. I want to sell it. I go on eBay. Oh, wow. This guy's asking $300. Well, I bet mine's worth $300. Probably have zero knowledge of the machine. So I list it for $300. And this just keeps repeating itself. People looking, oh, well, that's worth $300. I'm going to sell mine for $200. Or I'm going to sell mine for $400. It has the box. So you can see how sort of this like piles on and everything. So that is what we call the eBay effect. Now, the problem with that is it's an artificial inflation of these prices. So obviously, I'm a very cheap person. I do not have the collection of Macs I have by spending a lot of money, or I would not be able to afford the rent. So the items that are usually found on eBay are very high priced. Usually. There are some exceptions to that. People who do their research, people who just want something gone, people who are under the assumption of it may have problems, I don't want to deal with somebody returning it. Usually eBay and PayPal, they tend to side with the buyer. So people are a little cautious usually when posting stuff online because they don't want to worry about returns. Especially if you ship this iMac to me and you pack it poorly and it comes damaged, I'm going to want to send it back. So if I spent $300 on it, I want my refund. If I spend $20 on it, maybe it's on me. So that's the eBay effect. It's terrible. I hate it. However, 99% of people are probably going to be looking at eBay when they try and price something because that's just what they're thinking of. I need to find a price on this. Let me go on eBay. That's what somebody's asking for. Now, the real way to see what somebody is, actually selling these things for is to do a search. So you go on eBay, you tap that little filter bar there, and you look on the little drop-down menu and you do, they get sold items or completed items. And it would show you what has sold and for what price. So that gives you an understanding of what actually sold for that price. So if I look up an iMac G3 and I see, all right, this one sold $50, this one sold for $70, this one sold for $100, I get an actual value of what something actually sold for. But yeah, as Ken's mentioning in the chat, shipping, that is something that is crazy to deal with. So you're going to get something that may be destroyed by the time it got to you, or a really sad situation is some people put all of their trust in the shipping companies, like a courier. Side note, I got a Laserdisc player shipped to me, and it was a very specific model I wanted. It was a Pioneer Laser Active Laserdisc player. Anybody who knows anything about Laser Active players, they're well sought after. They're not a lot of them were made, and they could do a lot of cool stuff. So I found one. It was listed in working condition, but had a few quirks. I won the auction. I was very adamant telling the seller I want it packed carefully. Shipping is a death sentence for Laserdisc players. Usually you have to double box them. You have to make sure the tray is secure and all this stuff. Unfortunately, what happened was the guy basically brought the Laserdisc player to FedEx and said, here, you guys pack it. Unfortunately, what they did was they took a piece of styrofoam about this thick and they put it under, put a piece of styrofoam about this thick, put it on top, inside of a box that had a few inches of wiggle room all the way around, took some crumpled up newspaper, put it here, 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 and here, and they said, this looks good enough. So, needless to say, this Laserdisc player arrived in very poor condition. The metal on all sides was pretty beat up. The tray has some cracks in it. I probably will never get it to work playing Laserdiscs because it was just beat to heck during shipping. And unfortunately, that is something that got completely ruined because somebody put their faith in, a shipping company that maybe FedEx was good 99% of the time, but whoever handled that package had no idea how to ship it, and, they just destroyed it. So, I had to go through all these claim processes with eBay. I had to deal with FedEx directly. The seller was basically like, oh, I emailed FedEx, you're good. And I had to follow up with him. I had to put a claim report in, all this stuff. So it wasn't fun. That's, the dark side of dealing with eBay. If something's small or if something's local, that's awesome because you can go pick it up. But yeah, so be careful about shipping. That's, you can see a good price on something, but the shipping may make it a terrible deal. Oh, so welcome to Video City. Orlando said he got a refurbished mint Sony VCR wrapped in newspaper and it came disassembled. I saw that on Twitter. That was so sad. That was terrible. Oh, that was absolutely terrible. Yeah, that's very sad. The laser active player does turn on, and the tray opens, but it really doesn't spin up a disc. So obviously I have a lot of projects to work on. Thankfully it does turn on. I got enough of my money back from it that it's all right. And then there's a whole other story with how I got scammed with that anyway. But that's not what we're talking about. So before I went on that segue, I was talking about where do I find items. So eBay, if you could avoid it, I would. Sort of my last resort for finding anything. Anything that I see online, like via social media, Letgo or Facebook Marketplace or OfferUp, those are three options. I think they're pretty good. Facebook is a little bit better than Letgo because it kind of requires you to be a user for a while. I think there are less scams on there. I mean, look, it's the internet. You're going to get scammed probably 1 out of 10 times maybe. You just got to be smart and be careful. Meet up at a public place, all that good stuff. Craigslist, once in a while I'll find something for somebody who doesn't know about these things. They'll post something on Craigslist. Thanks Orlando for stopping by. See you later. And yeah, so, Facebook Marketplace, Letgo, OfferUp. What you have to be smart is how you use those applications. So an example with Letgo, how their app works is it's on the phone. You take a picture of something, it guesses what that is. So if I take a picture of an iMac, it's going to guess it's a TV. Yeah? See where I'm going here? So if I do a search for an iMac, it might come up because or it might not, because if you use the Letgo app and you take a photo of something, then all of a sudden it's going to try to determine what that is. If it's false in determining what that is, the user has an option to edit that. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just say, it's good enough, I want $20 for it, post. And so you'll see plenty of times CRT TV, Tube TV, gray computer, whatever. No description at all. That's because Letgo automatically names these things, and some apps probably do it too, but I've noticed Letgo does that a lot. Yeah, Facebook Marketplace, it has, I think they require to manually put in the title. And, some of you guys saying Letgo is filled with scammers. And, in my area, probably too. I just be very smart about who I interact with. I've not had someone scam me locally through Craigslist, Facebook, or Letgo. I'm just smart about who I talk to. if they want money in advance or something fishy like that, you just step away from it. Just block them, report them. It's not worth your trouble. Always ask for more pictures. You just got to be smart about it. But anyway, Facebook Marketplace I've had a lot of luck with. Letgo I've had a lot of luck with. One thing is tricky. You just gotta, I'm in New Jersey, so north of me is New York. Northeast of me is New York, and Pennsylvania is close by, and Connecticut, and all this stuff. So if I make the radius of where I'm looking pretty large, it could be quite a trip. New Jersey is not the smallest state, but it's not the biggest state rather, but it's not too small either. So driving north and south it gets old. So you want to make sure that your distance is set up correctly, so you're finding stuff. Sometimes they'll suggest things that are out of the way, or like in another state or another country, and I'm like, okay, that doesn't really help me. But yeah, so Facebook Marketplace, Letgo, look locally too. Craigslist is not the best, but sometimes that's all people know. Especially an older generation, they might not know Facebook Messenger, Marketplace rather, or Letgo. They might think, oh, Craigslist. So it never hurts to check that. But a tip that I will always repeat until, I'm dead, I guess, is when you are talking to somebody and they have something you want, let's say it's a computer, let's say it's a video game system, let's say it's something, you want to make sure that, first off, it's in the condition you assume it is. Don't make assumptions. You don't want to think, oh, this works, I'm going to get it, and then come home and be disappointed. You want to be prepared. You want to do your research. If you see something that's a deal that's too good to be true, probably is. It's probably a scam, or maybe the thing's broken. Read the fine print, read the ad, ask a bunch of questions. If they don't want to respond to you, that's tough on them. You'll find another deal. Nothing's worth going out of your way to get yourself in trouble or injured or scammed or anything like that. So just gotta play it cool. That's all. Oh wow, yeah. So Ken says that Craigslist is how he got the Macintosh TV and how he got his TAM. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so Demir says he's from Connecticut and sees a lot of stuff in New Jersey. I'm the opposite. I'm in New Jersey. I see a lot of stuff in Connecticut. So, so you know what I'm feeling like there when I see this post and I'm like, But ask a bunch of questions. Also, as I went on a long story about how I got my Apple III, always ask, do you have anything else like this when you're going to pick up the thing? Maybe somebody has 50 iMacs, but they only post one. Maybe somebody has a bucket of keyboards. They only post one. You don't know what they have until you ask. Maybe they only have one. Maybe they're not a computer person. Maybe somebody gave it to them to resell and they have no idea what it is. But it never hurts to ask. It takes you 5 seconds. When I was picking up that Blueberry Apple G3 style LCD monitor, I was literally loading it into my car. And I said, let me know if you ever come across any other computer stuff. The guy brought me back in his house. He had a 6100 workgroup server. He had a 9600 workgroup server. He had a Graphite iMac G3. He had a Blueberry iBook G3. He had an eMac G4. He had a bunch of cables, a bunch of software, and he had an Apple III. I walked away with all that stuff after we negotiated. You never know. You just got to ask. So that was crazy. So it never hurts to ask. That's where I'm going with that. And then finally, pricing. So, how much is too much? Everyone always asks me, what's a good price for this? What's a good price for that? I got to tell you, especially with the older stuff, anything above like $40 is a gamble to me. Especially with the older stuff. And that's going to be our sort of next subtopic we go into, of what to look at for and what to beware of with the older stuff. Because anything that is old, you're going to have issues with probably. Capacitors and batteries are one thing, power supplies, stuff like that. You never really know the condition. It could turn on right in front of you. You bring it home, it stops working. So, I forgot to turn on Do Not Disturb. How about that? So with that being said, pricing is subjective, so it's all up to you. So if you are working on something and you're trying to find a computer, or you're trying to find a particular wire or setup or something that's very niche that you don't want to go to eBay for, pricing may not be on your side. You may be outpriced. But you try and do some research. I know eBay's not the best, but see what things have sold for and completed for. Ask the community, ask Facebook, ask a friend, ask someone on the Facebook group, ask someone on Mac Yak, ask someone on Discord, ask somebody. You know somebody who's into Laserdiscs or into Macs or into CRTs or into Nintendo or into Sega. Ask them what they think it's worth. Get an understanding of it. And so if this guy's selling something for $100, but ideally you'd want to pay 50, start a negotiation. Hey, they can't say no if you don't ask, and they can't say yes if you don't ask. So you have to try. It's sure as heck worth asking. You never know what's going to happen. So just reading some of the comments here. So Greg says he got a pile of stuff, including a blue and white G3, when he went to get a UMax clone. Yeah, I remember that, and I tipped you out to that UMax. I sent you the eBay link, and it was not too far away from you. You went to pick it up, and you got a heck of a score. So that's awesome, Greg. I was very jealous. And Brock says he got his late Power Mac G5. He likes his late Power Mac G5. That's a really cool one. Yeah. I skipped over thrift stores. There's not really a lot that I have to say about thrift stores. The ones by me really don't sell computers. So it's hit or miss. Sometimes I'll find a cable, find some software. A lot of the Goodwills actually recycle their computers, at least in my state. They have big signs up, they'll just take them. I remember dropping off some stuff to a Goodwill and I saw some scuzzy PowerBook cables and I'm like, oh, I just want to take that. Like, I'll give you money, but I couldn't. It was in the donation bin or whatever they were going to sort through. But yeah, so I mean, pricing is all relative. Just be careful. You don't want to overpay for something and regret it, especially if something doesn't work. Do your research, ask around, and never pay more than what you're comfortable with. To somebody, this iMac here is probably worth, I don't know, $10. To somebody else, cleaned up, working with the matching keyboard and a mouse, might be worth $50 or $100 or $200. I don't know. It's up to them. Maybe this color was uncommon where they live. Maybe they're overseas. Maybe it wasn't released there. It's something that's common here is not common in Japan and vice versa. So you never know. You never know. Just reading some of your good finds here. Let's see. Indigo iMac G3 for $10 and a Power Mac G4 Graphite for free. That's pretty cool, Josh. Also, he got a Power Mac G4 867 megahertz dual processor for $5. That's a pretty good steal. Matt's Tech said he got a Mac Pro 1.1 on eBay for $130 and he's been using it every day ever since. Awesome. Josh also said there's a Goodwill he goes to and he got an iMac G4 there for $60. Hey, not bad. Greg says he passed on an Apple III in an antique store in 2014. How much was that Apple III, Greg, if you don't mind my asking? Ben says he restored a carbon copy clone backup of Mojave to my MacBook Pro. When I finished, it set the Apple logo for hours. Somebody help out Ben. He might need some help. That's why I don't upgrade to anything. I leave my systems on whatever they're on. So yeah, so that's pretty cool. Nice pickups, guys. You really don't know what you're gonna find when you go to the thrift store. Some other things, alternatives online. Goodwill has a website where they do auction off some stuff. It's better than eBay as far as pricing goes because they just want anything for it. But you do still have that worldwide audience like eBay also where you're gonna fight over things. So you might not win the auction or whatever. So I honestly, for the longest time, would not find anything locally. And then one day I'll come home with 3 Laserdisc players or or 2 Quicksilver G4 systems, or they were mirror drive doors actually. And I'll be like, oh my goodness, like this was unexpected. But yeah, another thing is, before we move on, recycling centers, I am not, part of a group or whatever that goes to them, but I know somebody who does, and they have their own little business out of it, and he's a friend of mine. So what's really cool is, for his business, he'll go out and he'll get laptops, and we'll try and fix them together or whatever. But once in a while, he'll find something like this iMac G3. It came from, a recycler, and yeah. So this was e-waste. Someone was going to toss it out. I think it was $5 or $10 or something like that was to get it, and so hey, to me that's worth the gamble. So that's a good price. Just following up on some stuff here. Let's see. Wow, Greg says it was $275. Still in the picture somewhere. Duke says he almost got a mint iPod Classic first gen from a thrift store. Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, the iPods I'm starting to see a lot of. which is neat. So that's something that I didn't expect to see a lot of, because I thought people would hold on to them. Because for the longest time there was there was a huge drive for the iPod Video. At least they were like hundreds of dollars on eBay and crazy stuff like that. All right, cool. So yeah, next is condition. Just want to talk about condition just really briefly. When you're buying stuff, ask questions, look at photos. You want to find out, has it been used? When last time it was turned on? Is the condition in poor? Is it like cracked? Is it okay? You might get a few bucks off if it's in poor condition. And a lot of times people may not know what they're selling. I always try and honestly be like, hey, look, you got this machine. It's a bit scuffed up. Maybe the hard drive's dead. Maybe the power cord's not working. You say you can't plug it into a screen. You want $100 for it. I'd feel more comfortable paying $50. Start a dialogue. See what happens. But condition can be helpful on your side, at least if you're trying to bargain. Let's see. Oh, I got to move my cursor over to this side here. Yeah, I was actually going to... So one of the comments was I keep looking at the clock in the live stream for the time. One of the things I was trying to do is there is a OBS plugin that does like a little clock. Unfortunately, it was like way too convoluted to get to work. You had to like basically have an old... set up an old web server just to get that clock be like an HTML element. And I'm like, no, it's not worth it. All right, cool. So next topic I want to talk about are things to be aware of when collecting Macs. Mainly talking about Macs pre the year 2000. Oh, thanks, Demir. Yep. Hope hope you enjoyed the stream. You can catch the rest later, anybody who has to bow out. Oh, wow. So Greg says that was the Apple III was $250 marked down from $350. Still too much. I don't know. That's just me. I see them selling on eBay like working condition with the monitor, with the disk drive, with the profile drive for about $800 to $1,000. So, I mean, it could be worth it to somebody if it is working, if it has a lot of memory and stuff. Oh, cool. I'll take a look at that. I thought I turned my Do Not Disturb on. Apparently I did not. So, yeah. Anyway. Okay, so, yeah, things to be aware of with Macs before the year 2000. And the reason why I say before the year 2000 is that's mostly when you're going to have issues with capacitor problems. You could just do a Google search what a capacitor is. They regulate, voltages between electronic components. But capacitors can leak over time, especially if they're like getting up to being 20, 30 years old with some of these machines. And that could be a big problem because that capacitor will leak onto the logic board or the motherboard of the computer and destroy the traces of all the electronic components, the chips and everything. And it could have a lot of problems. You don't want to deal with a machine that is all leaky capacitor filled, especially if you paid a lot of money for it. You can clean that up sometimes. In some cases, you could do that. Other times, you may not be as lucky. And you may run into issues where it destroys your computer. So I have a machine just off camera here I'm going to grab. And this is an example here. No, this is actually one that isn't damaged, but I'll actually at least show you what a capacitor looks like. So here's a Macintosh LC2. And so here's the board from an LC2. And the capacitors are these little silver domes right here. They could also come in different styles. You could have barrel types. This little yellow one over here is like a solid state type. I don't have all the fancy terminology in front of me. But these can leak. They can leak and they can destroy or corrode components on the board. So any computer I'd say that's getting up there in age, you want to check out the capacitors on. Even these iMacs, and they're relatively new to me, I think at least, because you sort of think of things in your youth as never being old. But, these came out 98, 99, and they're getting up there in age. So these are what, 20, 21 years old now? So yeah, I'd say any machine after 10, 15 years old, start to think about replacing the capacitors in. If you're not skilled enough with a soldering iron to do so, look up some tutorials, maybe try on a broken computer. It's really not too difficult if you do have the steady hands and the drive to want to do it. Or some places will actually repair it. You might be able to get something repaired. It's going to be an LC. Yep. Yeah, and when the capacitors leak, They stink. They smell like fish or some weird smell. It's like a very potent smell. You might not smell it right away until they start leaking, until you move the capacitors. That's what happens. Second thing on the list is batteries. So here is a little slot here for a little battery, and the battery will keep your clock time. It'll keep some preferences and stuff like that. Those little batteries are notorious for leaking. The second you get an old Mac, or you acquire an old Mac, or before you acquire an old Mac, look at the battery. See if it leaked. It might have leaked already and might have destroyed the board. I got a Performa Series LC style computer. I did an unboxing video of that a little while back, and it just had a battery that just wiped out the entire board. And it was just destroyed. It actually destroyed the hard drive, the floppy drive. It was a mess. So this little clock battery here, you want to be able to remove that. You could replace that battery with a newer battery. They're about $7 or $8 a battery on eBay, depending on your brand. Or you can modify it and use 2 AA batteries if that's more up your style. Yes, Jay's correct. So I had, I think it was a Quadra 800 tower, and the battery did not leak yet. As I took it out on the live stream, you could see the lid of the battery expanding. And so it was like leaking, like I guess the pressure of having the battery held in was just enough for it not to leak. And it literally could destroy computers. I have a Macintosh TV, board is destroyed because of the battery. I have a few LCs, board is destroyed, just absolutely destroyed because of the battery. So be careful with that. You want to make sure that if you're getting an old Mac, the batteries are okay. Oh, yeah. That's why you always want to ask for photos. Ugh, it's terrible. Next thing I want to talk about is brittle plastic. Not going to spend too much time on this, especially, these old beige computers. These plastic tabs, they're quite thin. They can be very brittle. The plastic sometimes does not age well, especially if it's cold. That's another thing with the batteries. Depending on if it was stored in a garage or cold climate, hot climate, the battery could expand or do some weird things to it. But plastics can be very brittle, especially as they age. I had a heck of a time taking apart one of these iMacs for a video that'll be out soon. That the plastic was just very, very brittle. So you just gotta be very careful. It's very, very bad. Yeah, if you go to I'll take a breath from talking, and I'll find the link for you guys of the Quadra battery expanding a little bit. A little bit, just a little bit. Let's see. Here's the Quadra, and let me skip to when I take out the battery. There we go, and I think I could just copy it at the current time. There we go. So I'm gonna put this link in there. Don't watch it now because you'll miss the live stream, but Jay, you could put that in Discord there or something. The stuff and expander, yes. A vital utility for any Mac user. So yeah, brittle plastics are another thing to look at. Dead SCSI hard drives. So Apple had to be different for some reasons, some good reasons. And they shipped most of their Macs in the 90s with SCSI hard drives. Those are getting harder to find. Drives are getting older. They're dying. They're getting harder to replace. So a Mac that you get may have a dead hard drive. So I would suggest investing in a SCSI to SD adapter or something similar to that, so you could actually boot off of something that's not going to be a ticking time bomb. Bad power supplies is something you also have to look out for in Macintosh machines. It happens to basically every machine I've gotten. There was an LC that had a bad power supply, an Xserve that I have. It worked for a while, then all of a sudden it didn't turn on. Probably a bad power supply. A lot of the G4 systems, the later G4 systems, had some power supply issues. So you never know. You might run into something where it turns on, then it turns off. And you might run into a problem with that. Ooh, your clone has a dead 50-pin SCSI connector. That's not good. The link there should have the time code in there with the battery. I think I'm like opening it up and I take the battery out like a minute or so later. So, yeah, I've encountered all of these issues. Yes, I've learned painfully from experience. This is why I'm sharing it with you guys. Bad power supplies is one thing. But I actually got a good score from a bad power supply machine. I really wanted this listing I saw on Facebook Marketplace. It was $75 for a mirror drive door G4. But what was really caught my eye of this was this 4Mac video, Firewire video capture device. And Greg Rutke has one that he showed off a while back. And his is a little cooler. His clear. Mine's just white. But I wanted this capture device. And the guy was only selling it as a bundle with his computer. He had a G4 tower, he had a hard drive, and all this other external stuff. But so I'm like, all right, could we do at least $70? And I'm like, okay, it's probably more than I want to spend, but whatever. So I drive up there. Well, I'm going to drive up there. I got a call from him. I'm sorry, I can't sell you it. And I'm like, wait, why? Why can't you sell me the thing? It's like, the thing doesn't turn on. It just turned on yesterday. It won't turn on anymore. And I'm like, the G4 has a power supply problem. So I acted disappointed, and he's like, you want to take it for like $40? And I'm like, okay, I'll take it for $40. Now the machine does work. The power supply is a bit iffy, so maybe it needs to be recapped or something. But I really wanted that video capture device, and the Power Mac's just sitting on the shelf. So I will get to that probably in a project, but it kind of worked out for me in that regard. Tim Cook applies thermal paste on the Apple CPU. I need to replace the PRAM battery in my PowerBook. It doesn't turn on until it's plugged in for an hour. Yeah, so batteries, you probably want to get them replaced. Might cause some issues. Some of the earlier Macs actually need a PRAM battery to start up successfully. Next on the list is CRTs, especially these iMacs. They can suffer from bad flyback transformers and stuff like that. So you want to be aware of the condition of the computer. Leave it on for a while. If you hear any crackling or zapping noises, it may be the CRT starting to go. And last thing to be aware of is operating systems. If you get an old Mac, maybe it's your first Mac, maybe it doesn't have a hard drive, maybe the hard drive is dead. How are you going to get it to work? You really need like an old beige Mac, ideally, to get another old beige Mac to work. Nothing could write 800K floppy disks like an old Mac can. It's a variable speed. You can't really do it much without it. So getting an older Mac to boot up without the right software, without the right disks, another old Mac that's working is always a good friend. So, you can make a bootable, like a bootable hard drive, like a zip disk or something, or a floppy disk, using another Mac and share to another. So there are some trials and tribulations to go through. I'm not going to talk too much about that, but just be aware before you're getting into a machine that maybe you don't have the stuff for. Yes, everyone give a thumbs up to this video. We got about 18 viewers or so right now, so that's pretty cool. So everyone give this video a thumbs up if you like it. I hope you do. Otherwise, what are you doing here? All right, so that was about collecting. We're going to move on to the Grape iMac in a second. But right before we do, one person asked me a question of Apple products that I got, that I would like to get, rather, like a wish list. I'm just going to name a few things, and I want to see what you guys think in the comments here. Because I have a lot of Macs already, but there are some that, if I see, I'm always interested in. So I have this separated into Apple products, and I have it separated into accessories. So some of the Apple products that I wouldn't mind picking up if the price was right. I'm not going to go spend crazy money here. First is an iPod Hi-Fi. So that was Apple's iPod speaker system. Kind of a weird product there. That's kind of why I want it. There's one new in the box like 10 miles from me. It's about $400. I'm not spending anywhere near that. Maybe $40, but that guy must be smoking something weird. Anyway, iPod Hi-Fi, Macintosh Portable. Those are pretty cool, but they have a lot of issues, especially with the battery. So you really have to rebuild the battery before you can get it to work. Again, not going to go out of my way to get it. Falls on my lap. I'll pick it up. PowerBook Duos, I like those systems. I have one working one and a few for parts, so those are always fun to look at. PowerBook 550, this is the Japan-only version of the PowerBook 500 series. That was a little better than the ones we got over here, so very rare I'll see that, but you never know. Macintosh servers, PowerPC, G3, G4 ones, those are pretty cool. PowerMac G3 all-in-one, so people call it the molar Mac because it kind of looks like a tooth. But this is basically a PowerMac G3 system in the kind of a shape of an iMac or one of those old all-in-one Performas. So that's something I'd be interested in picking up. A 20th anniversary Macintosh, a TAM. Yeah, they're pretty cool, but to be honest, I'd probably want the Molar Mac, the all-in-one G3. It's bulkier, more my aesthetic. An Apple IIc Plus. Those are pretty cool. I have an Apple IIc, but I like the design of the 2C and the 2C Plus rather, and it has the little 3.25. No, I'm thinking of 5.25. 3.5-inch floppy disk drive instead of the 5.25 floppy disk drive. And it has the power supply built in, so you don't have that brick on a leash power cord. An Apple IIc matching monitor with the stand. I've seen one locally, but they want like $200 for it, just for the monitor and the system. I'm not biting that. Oh, Ken says he recycled a PowerBook Duo and a Duo dock. No! Go back in time and send those to me. If it makes you feel better, I think my friend still has it, but I gave him my old PowerBook Duo 230, a Duo dock, and a 6100 computer years ago, probably like 15, 20 years ago. And I think he still has it. I don't think he has any interest in it. Maybe we'll get it back. But I have regrets too. Let's not go down that path. We'll all be sad together. And yeah, so that's the Apple products I'm really looking for. I am accepting donations now. Some of the accessories that I'm looking for. One is called a Joyport, Joyport. It came in ADB and USB flavors, and basically what it was an adapter to plug in a Nintendo or a Sega or another compatible video game controller to your Mac and let you use that controller on a Mac. Now, yes, there are modern solutions that let you do that via USB, but I was very interested there was an ADB version of that, which is pretty cool. So I only saw it in some magazines. Once in a while I'll see one on eBay, but I think that was a pretty cool thing. Other accessories, this is technically an Apple one, but it's a PC card cage, PCI, MCIA, or whatever you want to call it. A card cage for those little notebook credit card. I don't have one on my desk, do I? Yes, I do. Of course I have one on my desk. It's a card cage that lets you use these little PC cards on a PowerBook 500 series. I remember being like the biggest dork and asking for one for like my birthday and Christmas. But even then on eBay, they were like $60 or $70. So they were pretty cool. Yes. Yeah, get a time machine, Ken. Let's go back to the past. Yeah, so the PC card cage adapter, that's something I want to look in. I'm always looking for it. It's going to be stupid expensive. If I happen across it, I'll get it. But it's like, what am I going to even do with it, though? That's the thing. I'd probably like play with it in a video and be done with it. Next thing is processor upgrade cards, whether it's a 68K or a PowerPC or a G3 or a G4, whether it's an Apple one or Orange Micro or a Daystar or a Sonnet. Any accelerator cards I'm always interested in because I have a bunch of machines that could use them, so it'll be fun to play around with. And last but not least, the iMac G3 mezzanine cards. These are very, very interesting to me. I picked up one for Greg Rucke, and I'll be looking at it in the video, and then he'll be playing around with it. I'm not going to reveal exactly what it is. You'll have to wait for the video. But we picked up one of those and want to see how those work. They were only for the first two revisions of the iMac G3 that came out in 1998. That's the Revision A, Revision B models. They had this mezzanine card slot that was basically a link right into the PCI bus. So the iMac didn't have any expandability except for this port that Apple put in there. And they basically told no one, don't do anything with this. It's not supported. And then they took it out in the Revision C models, which this one doesn't have it. So I think that was a pretty neat thing. So I'm really interested about it because all I see is some pictures online. And it's cool to look at that stuff. Need a Sonnet G4. I think I have one Sonnet G4. I think it's in a 9600. And then I have one or two G3 cards, which are pretty cool. All right, so we're about that time in the video where I'm going to start tinkering with this computer. So I'm going to try and see if it works. I don't know. It's pretty dirty. I'll give you that first. It's not really in the best shape, but we're going to see if it wants to work in a second. I'm just going to catch up on the comments. Let's see here. Yeah, you void the warranty if you use the mezzanine cards in the iMac G3. I don't think we'll have that problem, considering the warranty probably expired 20 years ago. I think we're good. All right, cool. So I'm going to move some of this stuff here. We'll get to some of these later on, I guess. Microphone's here. I don't want to bash that. I'm going to try and move the camera so you can see the iMac. So place your bets. Yeah, so Master Gecko 4 says he bets it will boot up. He bets it'll boot up. This is a tray loading iMac. It's a 333 megahertz revision C. Place your bets. Do you think it'll boot up? Do you think the CRT will explode? What do you think? Oh, BOS. I never really played around with BOS. I think I might have to do that. All right, so let's move some of these binders here. I'm just going to put them over here. He says that he falls off the chair. $5, it'll work. Who are you? Do I get $5 or do I have to pay you $5 if it works? I don't know if I want to agree to that, Jay. $10, it will explode. Yeah, go to my Patreon and just submit money and place a bet if it'll work or not. All right, so I'm gonna take the camera off the tripod. We're gonna be a bit shaky here, but that's the only way you're gonna be able to see this thing. So let's do that. Make sure we don't unplug it, because that would be bad, wouldn't it? And of course, the cord is caught around the tripod. Of course it is, because we can't have nice things now, can we? So let's untangle it. Oh, this is fun. Thanks for taking that trip with me. $11 it'll boot. Okay, $10 it'll explode. Okay, so, oh boy, I hope it doesn't explode because I'm sitting awfully close to this thing. And so is the microphone. So if it explodes, you're going to hear a big bang. Okay, all right, and it's going to damage my little mini stack over here. Oh boy, all right, so I want to see some likes on this video before I die in a fiery death. Okay, all right, so I'm going to turn this on. I'm going to try using the keyboard button here. Let's see if that's a little further away. So let's see if this works. Maybe? Whoa, that was loud. No chime. Oh, the screen's lighting up. Hey, we got a Happy Mac. Hey, it works. Oh, this is dirty as anything. Look at that. 8.6 though. Move the mini stack to be safe. Oh boy, that is a noisy hard drive. This is get some ASMR material here with this hard drive. Jeez. Steve owes me $5. I ain't paying anybody nothing. All right, place your bets on how much memory's in this thing. Yes, macOS 8.6 is king. I love that OS. Rock solid. And we see our little other iMac in the background, looking at this iMac. AOL schedule just opened up. What the heck did we get ourselves into? Alright, the mouse works. Let's clean up this desktop. Basic Coins CD. Is there a CD in this thing? There is! Okay. Basic Coins. Is it this Bitcoin? Is this how we get the Bitcoin? Windows and Mac. Okay, we're gonna put that to the side. At least we know the CD drive works. All right, so I'm just turning around to read your comments here. Seeing how much memory you guys are guessing it has. I think it's shipped with 32 megabytes of memory. So, let's see how much it has about this computer rather. 32 megabytes. They never updated the stock memory of this poor thing. Oh. 32 megabytes. Not bad though. The virtual memory is turned on. Holy smokes. Oh, that's sad. The hard drive is not even named anything. It's named Dot. Well, let's fix this. Let's rename. Can we rename the hard drive? Whoa. Why won't it let me rename it? Okay. there's a comment in the box, whatever that means. Okay, I can't rename the hard drive. But it is a 6 gigabyte hard drive. Plenty of room, huh? Steve owes me more money. No! Don't make me stop this stream. We got an AppleWorks document. Let's open that. School 28 purple. Oh, it's just an AppleTalk alias. AppleWorks alias, rather. Yeah, this came from a school in New Jersey, obviously. Says the sticker on the back of it. But, yeah, ooh, what's in the trash? A bunch of coin stuff. I mean, the machine runs. I was not expecting that at all. How much adult content is on the computer? We're not going to do that on the live stream. Try and keep this fairly friendly, family friendly. Beginning sounds. AppleWorks 5 applications. QuickTime, Quicken Deluxe, Adobe Acrobat. Fax software. Ocean Adventure. Okay. Kid Phonics 2. The Learning Company. What we got in here? Sorry for the monitor's refresh rate, guys. Carmen Sandiego, USA. Reader Rabbit Toddler Edition. Clue Finders. Does It Belong? No. How are the speakers? That's right, it didn't do a startup chime. Oh, there we go. Oh, the speakers work. I think I know what I have to do, gentlemen. Ah, wrong one. There we go. Mike knows what's coming. It eeps. It's good. Oh, yeah. It works. Sorry, I'm just turning my head to read some of your comments. Yeah, I clicked on the name of the hard drive, but didn't want to rename. Maybe it's locked or something. The Wild Eep has returned. World Book Multimedia. There's a bunch of educational stuff on here. I'll have to image this hard drive, because there might be some cool stuff on here. Who knows? But I'm surprised this thing works. I mean, holy crap. It is dirty as anything, though. Like, look at the scuff marks on the top. There's some smudge marks on the CRT. The plastic is in surprisingly good condition, though. That's what really surprised me about this. Let's open up System Profiler. Yeah, built-in memory, 32 megs. We have 6 megabytes video memory on our ATI. I think it's a Rage Turbo chip. Let's see. Rage Pro C. 6 megabytes. Is that enough for Unreal Tournament, guys? What do you think? Yeah, you should definitely put 8.6 on your beige Mac. It will fly on a PowerPC, especially a G3. Yeah, I'll clean this guy up. I'll do a stream on my own about cleaning this up. But let's see how much space in the hard drive is actually being used. Available 5.3 gigabytes out of 6. This has like nothing on it. Holy smokes! AOL free trial. Oh. So they copied an alias to the AOL free trial installer from the Reader Rabbit CD. Because I clicked on... Whoa, stop speaking. Yeah, early Mac OSs like to speak the alert noise, the alert dialog boxes. Can it run Doom? Of course it could run Doom. The original Doom. Yeah, we'll have to connect this thing up and play some Unreal Tournament on it, because that's something I'm curious about. But yeah, there's not much else on this machine. That hard drive is noisy though. Jeez. Oh boy. Alright, so I think I'm going to shut it down now, but we know it works, so that's pretty cool, right guys? Oh, I have the Wings personality card for my G3 tower, my G3 mini tower. That's that's a real cool thing that I got from that G3 mini tower. I actually bought that for, I think it was $300 back in the early 2000s from MacAvalTrades.com. And it was a fully spec'd out 333 megahertz model G3 mini tower, 9 gigabyte ultra wide SCSI hard drive. It had the Wings personality card, all that. I'm a sucker for analog video stuff, so that was really cool. I would run a test on the hard drive. Yeah, I mean, we could play around with this. It's only set to 256 colors, probably because there was a game or something. But this monitor it just looks so filthy. It's like there's a level of grime on it for sure. And when I open up the windows, it sort of like zooms in a little bit. But not bad. Not bad at all. Okay, cool. So I'm going to shut this down so it doesn't explode or anything. But hey, I'm very surprised this works. 8.6. Sweet. Alright, so we'll just shut this down now. Listen to the crackle of that monitor. Alright, let me put the camera back on the tripod here. There we go. Oh, we're a little tilted. Sorry. Let's try and fix that. Maybe that's better. Maybe. Put an SSD in it. Oh, see you later, Master Gecko 4. Thanks for joining. No fishy smell, thankfully. I will probably open it up, take out the battery. Not just old Macs have battery problems, so yeah. But I was going to do a bit of history about this iMac. I'll do this very briefly, because we have other stuff to get to. This is my Apple Support Tools binder. That's where I get all my knowledge from. And inside we have product data sheets. So let's see what we got in here. Let's see if there's anything about this iMac in here. Let's see. Here we go. Would you look at that? We have a product data sheet for the iMac. So yeah, this is just a product data sheet for the iMac. You know, it's pretty cool. It talks about the iMac, its specs and stuff like that. So just thought I'd bring that out because might as well show off to you guys. All right, cool. So we looked at the iMac. We said it was a revision C model. See if I left anything off in my notes. This came out in January 99. The Bond Eye Blue model remained as the low-end model while the 5 fruit colors were out. And that was blueberry, grape, strawberry, tangerine, and lime. Yeah, and it worked. How about that? The Book of Steve. I got these two support tool binders from that Trenton Computer Show, probably 2006 or something like that. There's this one, then I have another one. I did a video on my channel very briefly showing off one of these. On Monday, maybe it's next week or maybe the weekend after that, there's a guy who has a few of these not too far away. I'm going to see if I could make a deal with him. Because they're just like printouts. If you were an IT service or whatever, you got these support items from Apple and they could be updated and stuff like that. So that binder is full of awesome information. There's newsletters in here. I scanned some of these already and they're on the Internet Archive. So this is an Applegram newsletter. And the date on this is May 1991. It talks about the brand new Macintosh LC. Talks about System 7. So some of those I am scanning in. I'm not just keeping them to myself. I want to share them. So in fact, let me get a link over here. And let's see if I could find the upload that I did for that stuff. Let's see. Sorry, one second. Here we go. All right, so I'm going to paste my Internet Archive uploads folder here. And if you click on that, you'll see some stuff there that I uploaded in the past. One of them is an Applegram newsletter. There might be a few of them actually in there. When did the iMac switch to the 17-inch screen and the metal stand? You mean the one with the lamp that looks like a, people call it the lamp or the Luxo or the eye or the sunflower or whatever. The base, the sphere base with the tube, that was an iMac G4. That was the early 2000s. And the sort of traditional, more of the flat plastic or metal with the L-shaped little base there, that started the iMac G5. All right, cool. So we're at the questions time here, guys. We're at questions time. So I got my printout of questions here on my top high quality ImageWriter 2 printer. So first off, thank you for everybody who submitted questions. I was very surprised. Yesterday I put out an Instagram post. I'm just looking for a pen so I can mark off the ones that I read already. I had a pen. I don't know where I put it. It's probably like right behind my back, but I can't reach it. Hold on. Maybe. Whatever. Yeah, some people nicknamed the G4 the Pixar lamp and such. All right, but yeah, we got questions here. So I'm going to read off the person who asked the question. We got some from Instagram, got some from YouTube. So anybody who asked a question, I will answer it. Yeah, I think I got yours, buddy. Let me go through, and if I missed anybody, give me a shout out. Okay, so first question comes from Instagram. I'm going to go through in sections here. So first we have some from Instagram, then we have some from YouTube. Okay, so first one from Instagram. The username is the Rainbow Apple Logo. The Rainbow Apple Logo asks, what do you think is better about old Macs, excluding the ability to take them apart? Well, that's no fair. I'm not ripping this paper, no. All right, so what do I think is better about old Macs? I don't know. There's a lot I could say about this subject. We have a lot of questions, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But I don't know. There was more of a, like, an allure to them, I think. You know, they were, I don't want to say like mystical. That's not the right term for it, but they were very different of the time. These days, computers are very much the same processors, same technology, really. But I don't know, Macs of the time, the old ones, they were very interesting. They were very weird. You know, the design of them was very appealing. You had these machines that were designed in a very specific way. I think that was something that always drew me to the Macintosh. The whole philosophy of, yeah, like Jay said, it just works, you know, kind of having the ability to have the same company manage the software and the hardware. But what I really like about the older machines was maybe how Apple treated its customers. Really. Those older Macs, you know, you were spending thousands of dollars on a machine, and they really stood by their products. Not that they didn't have problems. They did. They had problems with the Apple line. They had problems with the Macintosh line. They have problems today. But I feel like it was sort of higher quality type stuff. And I don't know, it was an exciting time because a lot of stuff was new. The graphical user interface was new. So what I think is better about the old Macs was, I don't know, maybe it was just a mixture of all those things. It's probably a poor answer, but I think Apple just really still gave a crap about their stuff. You know, they really tried to make the best machine, and now, you know, they're you know, they have a bunch of products right now. And you ask me how many iPad models Apple has, I have no idea. There's too many. Yeah, so, you know, I think a lot of things were better about older Macs. The hardware, yeah, it was 68K or PowerPC, but they were really innovative. So I think innovative hardware, the hardware itself, like the powerful machines, I think was really interesting. And a lot of the products that they came out with. I mean, I'm bleeding into Macs versus Apple, but I don't know, the expandability too. You know, not just taking them apart, but the expandability. If I bought a Macintosh, I could open it up, I could upgrade the memory. Nothing was soldered on, really. You know, unfortunately, that's the case today. The design language, yes, as some people are saying in the chat, yes. No problems, Greg. Good luck on cleaning. All right, so next question. Fallout 3210 asks, what is your favorite... Oh, maybe I read that wrong. Fallout 3210. There we go. Sorry. What is your favorite classic Apple computer? I'm going to interpret this as an Apple, not a Macintosh. And I'm going to have to go with the Apple IIgs. I think that was, I think that was, yeah, that was the first Apple II series machine I ever used or ever got. I probably used one without me knowing it. Um, and it was just really ahead of its time. The whole sleek design of that thing, having ADB ports and the newer serial ports and everything. It was like, that was built in 1986. That machine was an awesome Apple II model, and it was really like the best that Apple II product could be at that point. And it was a real shame because they could have done so much more with the Apple II line, but the Macintosh came out and the Apple II was color, the Macintosh was black and white. The Apple II had graphics and sounds capabilities, the 2GS at least, and the Macintosh didn't. And famously, Apple divided the teams up within the company. You were either for the Mac or you were for the Apple II, and Steve Jobs just let them at each other. And it would have been really cool to see the Apple II line continue. But they tried to make a business-only machine with the Apple III, and that failed miserably. And I think Apple just focused on the Mac after that. But I think the Apple 2GS would be my answer for my favorite classic Apple computer. Hugh Aesthetics 63 asks, why is Steve Jobs considered a genius? That's a loaded question. In my opinion, it's probably the ruthlessness of him, but also the compassionate side of driving to complete a vision for a product. Yeah, he was probably a jerk a lot of the times. I'm not defending him at all or anything like that. I've heard stories both good and bad about him. I've never met the guy. I've seen him. He was at the opening of the Apple Fifth Avenue store in New York. I think I saw the back of his head probably. I mean, he really, to his credit, saw a lot of things before anybody else did. The stuff at Xerox PARC, all the user interface stuff they were going to do, who had a vision for, putting that stuff into play. And not all of his ideas were successful, but, he would pivot and he would, drop something that he knew was inferior to something he just saw, and that would be his favorite new idea, and he would run with that. So that is, sort of why I think a lot of people call him a genius, because he sort of had a foresight for that. He screwed up on some things and he was better on other things. I don't think he managed Apple too well towards the end of his run at Apple. He certainly brought it back from the depths of, being dead in the late 90s. He reinvigorated the company. He introduced the iMac. He really cut down the products to be, that famous box where it's, four corners. You had a pro laptop, a consumer laptop, a pro desktop, a consumer desktop. And that's basically where they started from. And Apple's really deviated from that, I think. That's maybe why some people call him a genius. You always hear the stories about him and Steve Wozniak, and Steve Wozniak was always the engineer, the tinkerer, the inventor, and Jobs was like the marketing guy. So I think he gets a lot of credit. Maybe some credit is not really aimed towards him, because a lot of people develop the products, but you have to have respect for the individual. That's what I think about that. So next question is by, I'm going to spell this one out because I guess it's Droid2does, but it's DROIX2_does. They ask, if Apple still used PowerPC, what would have happened? Oh boy. If Apple still used PowerPC, that's a good question. Apple might not have been around anymore, to be honest with you. Yeah. They were not in the best of shape. I mean, yeah, the G5 was pretty powerful, but Steve Jobs famously stood on stage and promised a 3 gigahertz tower by the next year of the Apple event or Macworld or whatever, and IBM Motorola wasn't able to do that. So the Intel switch happened in 2006, or began at least, and I don't know. I don't know what would have happened if Apple stuck around with PowerPCs. It's interesting the way ARM is working out, because those processors are crazy fast. The iPad Pro is, in some benchmarks, almost comparable to a MacBook Pro, so that's pretty crazy. Jay says we would have had Freon cooling blocks the size of generators sitting next to our G8s. Yeah, that's the thing, because those PowerPC processors, at least back in the day, they were not easily cooled. They were very hot. And with the Intel switch that sort of drove the marketing message of performance per watt, and efficiency and all that stuff. But it would have been cool to see some more products from them. Demir asks, what is your proudest vintage Mac repair / restoration accomplishment? Wow, that's a tough one. Probably the Apple III profile hard drive. I did a video on that. If you go to my channel, check it out. Like I said, I got that Apple III basically on a whim. Somebody had it and they gave it to me. And it had the profile hard drive, and I knew nothing about this thing. I talked to my good friends at Mac Yak, Mike and Greg and Jay and Greg and Rocky. They all helped me try and fool around with this thing. And Mike was essential to this because he had a lot of knowledge playing around with the Apple III or knowing about it. So thanks again, Mike. And we basically played around with that Apple III. I was just sitting over there at my workbench and just trying to like get this hard drive to work. And, the Apple III would see the hard drive. It didn't find, it couldn't recognize it. And then I took it apart and I moved some things around and I got it to work. So watch that video. It's that I think is one of my proudest achievements so far. I mean, there's been a lot of things I was able to fix, but also the stuff that I don't fix, maybe I'll go back to another day and try and fix. Let's see some of the comments here. Yeah, I think if IBM really got themselves back together, they would have done a lot better with the PowerPC processor. Brock says he spoke to Steve Jobs for 10 minutes on the phone. Received a new Power Mac G5 with a leaking cooling system. I faxed over a nasty letter to him. He replaced it overnight with a late 2005. That's really cool, Brock. I'll have to talk to you about that later. That's really neat. That's one way to get someone's attention. To his credit, and I think Tim Cook does it once in a while too. If you really make a stink, sometimes they'll admit they were wrong and they'll replace something. But sometimes their quality control, especially these days, isn't as good. Anyway, next question from Heart of Yoshi asks, imagine Steve Jobs is alive, asking you what your dream Apple product should we build. Ooh, that's a good question. Oh, I have to think about this. What dream Apple product would they build? Wow. My dream Apple product would be an affordable, expandable Mac Mini, sort of like a Mac Pro Junior. Maybe it doesn't cost $6,000. Maybe $1,000, $1,500. Make it headless. Give it an integrated GPU, but give it a card slot. I don't need 10 card slots. Give me 2. Give me 3. Give me a mini tower. Give me a G3 mini tower again. Give me some expandability. Thunderbolt is great and everything, but I want the card slots built in the machine. I don't want a $500 eGPU box, and then I got to stick another $500 GPU into there. I think really, if I wanted them to build something new besides something silly like a new PowerPC machine, which wouldn't be silly, that'd be pretty cool. But realistically speaking, if they were to build a machine, I would really want them to build like a consumer, prosumer, kind of like the iMac Pro, but really with, make it a thick Mac Mini, make it big. I don't care how big this silly thing is. Make a Mac Mini Pro or a Mac Pro Junior, whatever you want to call it. But give you something like that. I hate everything being soldered on. Give me memory slots. Give me some hard drive bays. Give me some expansion slots. Just make it wicked fast. Make it upgradable. Don't solder the CPU down. Any of that silly stuff. Just come on. No frills desktop. Like the Dell Optiplex models, the business ones where you have these smaller form factor ones. Yeah, it doesn't have everything, but it's pretty basic. Give me one of those. I'd like one of those. I don't want to pay the Apple tax for an iMac that everything is like glued and soldered and stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, the iMacs are cool. I have a 2011 one I love, but I'm not a big fan of this soldering stuff. Hey, Dana. Welcome to the party. We're answering some questions here. So, Yoshi's in the chat. So, yeah, I miss the card slots too. I mean, yes, Thunderbolt and USB, they're convenient, but Thunderbolt stuff, at least Thunderbolt 1 and 2, are still pretty expensive, especially the eGPU stuff. Anything to get external connectivity, pretty pricey. Yeah, ports. Give me ports. Exactly. Give me plenty of ports. And then give me the card slot so I could add more ports to those ports, and I could add ports onto those ports with more ports. All right, cool. Next question. I can't speak today. Next questions comes from Tim Dorez. If you had to keep only one computer in your collection, what would it be? Oh, no. That's an awful question. That's an awful question. If I could keep only one computer in my collection, what would it be? Oh, that's a tough one. Only one. Well, I think it would have to be my Key Lime clamshell iBook, my prized iBook that I had when I was a kid. 466 megahertz G3 special edition iBook, DVD-ROM drive, airport, 10 gigabyte hard drive, FireWire port, airport wireless. Oh, I love that thing. I still have it. Needs some love, but I still have it. I think, if it really came down to it, that'd probably be the machine. I love that thing. All right, so those are the questions from Instagram. Got a few more from YouTube. Jay from the House of Moth and also Mac Yak, and he's in the chat right here. He says, will you beat Greg Rucke to a proper Xserve video? I'd love to. The Xserve I have is a G5 dual processor Xserve. I think it's just a 2 gigahertz one. And let's see. The problem with it is the power supply, as I talked about a little bit earlier. I got it from my old job. They were literally just going to toss it away. And it booted up. I mean, the thing sounded like a jet engine, but it booted up. I had it in the basement for a while, and then it just didn't turn on. So I actually think it's the power supply, and Jay is actually, an expert at those power supplies. So maybe Jay, I'll send you the power supply. We'll do a collab or something. You could fix it up. I could keep the Xserve on my shelf there, and it could, serve some files or something ridiculous, and make my energy bill go up or something like that. Why is your system 7 Mac clock stuck on 7:58 p.m.? Because it is. That's the way it is. Be my guest to build something interactive. I almost stole it last time I was over. That's right, Mike. That's right. That's why I need a metal detector by my door. To keep you from grabbing all the Apple II stuff and running out like a bandit. Yeah, so that's your question, hopefully answered. I would love to do an Xserve video. I don't really know anything about it. I'm sure somebody much more knowledgeable about Xserve who has an X-Raid and Jay or somebody else that could do like a history video of it. But I'd play around with one maybe if I can get it working. So definitely look at that. Next question comes from Craig Cooper. What is your favorite retro Mac pre-Intel? I always liked the iMac G4 models. Well, I talked about the Apple II, and I talked about my Lime iBook. So I talked about pre-Macintosh, and I talked about PowerPC Mac. So let me pick a 68K Mac. Permanent daylight savings time. Yeah, that's what the clock in the corner set up to. Work. Anyway, let's see. So the question was my favorite retro Mac pre-Intel. So I'm going to restrict myself to the 68K era. I'm going to have to say the Quadra 840AV. I love that machine. Again, I'm a sucker for anything with analog video in and out, so that was a cool feature that machine had. I think it's the fastest 68K Mac that Apple ever put out. I have one. Unfortunately, the caps have to be replaced. It's not giving me any signs of life right now. No chime or anything. It does turn on, but nothing else afterwards. But I love that machine. I think it's really cool. So I guess that would have to be my answer for my favorite retro Mac. Oh, Quadra 700. Ooh, that's... Any of these Quadras, really. 950, 700. Ooh. Oh, just give me all the Quadras. That's what I'm streaming on right now. I'm streaming on a Quadra. No. Let's see. Next question comes from... Actually, asked 2 questions. How dare you? No. Asked 2 questions. The Seventh Stranger asked, do you have a classic iPod collection or a personal favorite iPod? I don't really have a collection of them. I have parts and stuff of, iPods and things that I've had in the past. My first iPod was a 5 gigabyte scroll wheel one where the wheel actually scrolled. Very thick. I got it after the 10 gig came out, so it was a little cheaper. That was a cool model. I still have it. The FireWire port's a bit messed up, so it'll charge, but I can't transfer data. So I'm stuck with whatever music I was listening to back then. And so a personal favorite iPod. I really like the iPod Classic, the iPod Video, iPod Classic. I really like those. Those are really, like, they did an excellent job on those. I have one of those. So I guess I do have a mini iPod collection. I don't really have anything other than the standard iPods. I do have a collection of Sony Mavericks. Mike is right. I have an iPod 5 gig. I have my brother's old iPod 20 gig, which is actually a Hewlett Packard branded one. I still have the box around here. That was for the short time HP was selling iPods. I have an iPod 3rd gen. That's the one with the 4 buttons that light up red and the touch wheel. And I have an iPod Video. I have a 1st gen iPod Shuffle, but it's messed up. I have a 2nd gen iPod Shuffle that's a lime green one. And I have an iPod Nano I picked up, but the battery's dead, and I think it's swelling. And my mother used to have an iPod Mini, but we don't have that anymore. So, yeah, that's the iPod question. And the second part of that question was, taking the time that they were released into account, which laptop do you think Apple nailed the best? I actually have it right here. And it's really the series of these, maybe not this particular model. But this is the Bronze Keyboard PowerBook G3. And this is one of my favorite bridge machines because it has USB, it has SCSI. You could have a card slot, a FireWire card put in the card slot there. This is really one of my favorite machines. It's expandable. You have 2 bays here. This has a super disk drive in it. There's a battery on this side, but you can put a floppy drive in there. Yeah, so any of these PowerBook G3s, I'd say they knocked it out of the park with each one of them. I think a lot of them were great. Any that use this design style, I know the 1st gen, was it the Kanga PowerBook G3s were a little but the Pismos, the Wall Streets, the Bronze Keyboard ones, I love them. And last question comes from Greg Rucke. Can I be in the stream? Well, you're on the chat now. We'll try and get you onto the next one. But yeah, that's the question. So thank you guys for all the questions. I'm timing this pretty well so far, I think. But thank you for all the questions. Anybody have a question that I didn't answer, or you were late to submit it? Submit in the chat. Maybe I'll get a chance to read it. Greg says, "Screw the Lombard." Aw. Honorary mention to the PowerBook 540C. Dana says, the PowerBook 540C. That's a good one. I have one of those. That was the second PowerBook I ever had. Well, the third. I got a PowerBook 230C from a museum. They used to do this thing where you donate electronic waste and you get something. And I had enough points to get a PowerBook. I always wanted to go back there. They had so much cool stuff. Never got the chance to do that. I think by the time we went back, the exhibit was closed for the day. It was bad timing. Anyway, yeah. And let's see. What was I going to say? Then I got a PowerBook 270C, a Duo 270C. And then the screen got cracked on that in the year 2000, and I was very upset. But I got a PowerBook 540C off eBay, and that was my PowerBook for a while because it had a cool little trackpad. These were all used. They were very old when I got them, but I still liked them. Hey, Jake. Welcome to the party, pal. Yeah, so those PowerBooks are all good. I love those PowerBooks, and any of the old stuff is fine in my book. Okay, so let's see what we got next. So we only got about 20 minutes left here. Maybe a little sooner than that. We'll end here. Let's see if there's any questions in the chat I missed. Jay says, Steve, we need to all gather up at your place. Everybody brings soldering equipment and tools, and we have a recapping weekend with games of UT scattered throughout. I am very much game for that. We'll just have to set up a metal detector. Make sure you guys don't walk out with half my collection. No, but that sounds awesome. I have at least 50 computers I think that need recapping. At least. That's being conservative in that estimate. Okay, so last thing I'm going to discuss here is transferring data to old Macintosh systems. I'm not going to go into too much depth here. We only have about 20 minutes left. I'm probably not going to go to the full 2 hours here. But some of the things that you may run into if you're new to collecting old Macs. And I touched on this a little bit earlier. Offer help, be called a thief. I wasn't the one that suggested that someone else who visited take home something with them, Jay. So don't look at me like like you're so innocent. I permanently borrow. You appropriated it. That's all. Yeah. So transferring data to old Macs. So the problem is, let's say you get a Macintosh and you don't have any software for it, or the hard drive's dead, or the Mac doesn't have a hard drive in it. How are you going to get this machine to work? And this is pretty much a problem. Jay wasn't shot down. He's welcome to come over. I just had to pat him down before he exits, that's all. One of the problems with getting old machines, if they don't have a working hard drive, or if you don't already have an old Mac, is getting software to that machine to make it work. So the biggest problem would be any machine before, let's say, the Macintosh Classic. So your later Macintosh SEs, your Macintosh Classic and upwards, most of those machines had a 1.4 megabyte floppy drive, a high density floppy drive, or a super drive. Those are much easier to make floppy disks for, to install system software on, to reformat the hard drive, all that stuff. Anything older than that, I'm talking just Macintosh, not really Apple stuff yet, Apple II stuff yet, but anything that's the original Macintosh, that took 400 kilobyte floppy disks. They had 400K floppy disk drives. The Macintosh Plus had 800K floppy disk drives, and some of the earlier Macintosh SEs had 800K floppy disk drives. The Macintosh 2 models, some of them had 800K drives, the original 2. Then there was an upgrade. You could get replace the ROMs in there, and you could get a 1.4 meg support for a super drive. So yeah, floppy disks are going to be a bit of annoying unless you have an older Mac that has a 1.4 megabyte super drive that has the variable speed motor in there to write both 800K disks and 1.4 megabyte disks. You can't use a PC floppy disk drive. You can't use a USB floppy disk drive even if it's plugged into a beige Mac. You can't use an iMation super disk drive. You can't. The only disk drive that is able to write 800K floppy disks correctly without fault is an original Apple super drive or an original Apple 800K disk drive. Yeah, so as Dana Lando's hair in the chat is saying, they're all alternatives. So SCSI 2SD is an adapter that allows you to use an SD card. I have one over here. Let's see if I can feel for it. Maybe. I'm moving the Mac Minis aside. They are not happy. Here we go. Did I just slip? I think I just put the card. There it is. So here's my little SD card. It's dusty, but this says Mac SD number 1. This is the SD card I use. It's an old 1 gigabyte SD card. And this is for my SCSI 2SD adapter, which is on my shelf. I'm using it with another machine. But what's great about that is you don't need a SCSI hard drive, which most Apple computers, if they had a hard drive up until the Performa series around the mid-90s, they used a SCSI hard drive, which was faster, but it was more expensive. And a lot of stuff, a lot of PC stuff did not use SCSI. It was more expensive. Server stuff on the PC side sometimes used SCSI, but finding a working SCSI drive these days is not too good. Your luck is running against you there. But yeah, the SCSI 2SD adapter was pretty cool. As Jay's saying in the chat, we did some testing on it. There are caveats to everything though, because the SCSI 2SD adapter only works if you could write to the standard macOS file system, the HFS file system. They've removed write support from that after macOS 10 Leopard. That's 10.5. So Leopard could run on PowerPC and early Intel machines. But that's the only way on a Mac you could write files to a SCSI to SD, SD card. So you might be able to, run OS 8 because that's Mac OS 10 extended or HFS Plus file system. There are some Linux tricks I heard that you might be able to do to format it using the DD command and stuff like that. I've seen some of that stuff. I haven't tested it personally, but I know from the Mac perspective, you're likely going to run into an issue if you're running anything larger than 10.5 because you simply cannot write to the HFS file system. Apple removes support from that. So yeah, your biggest challenge is going to get the OS onto these systems. So it's great to have a Mac like, let's say, this PowerBook here that has a floppy drive and connecting to the internet. You can download images, all that fun stuff. So SCSI to SD adapter is good. A floppy MU is another one. It's sort of like a SCSI to SD adapter, but it's floppy disk based. So a lot of the early Macs had a floppy disk port for an external floppy drive. A floppy MU would work with early Macintosh machines or Apple II machines because they had the same port on it. And that emulates a floppy disk drive, uses an SD card adapter. You have tons of disk images on there, which is pretty cool. Okay, let's see. Talked about that. Transferring data. So the same thing about, you just want to try and get that Mac booted up, whether it's from a floppy disk or a CD. You could probably find some on eBay. You could ask a friend who has an old Mac to send you some disks. Once you get it working, if the Mac has hard drive support, get a SCSI to SD adapter, get an old SCSI hard drive so you have that. So you have an OS on there. Make backups of your install disks. Never hurts. You could get floppy disks basically anywhere these days. eBay, Goodwill sometimes. I still see them new in the box sometimes. 800K disks are more harder to find. Especially 400K disks, those are very hard to find. But your standard 1.4 megabyte floppy disks, they only stopped producing them a few years ago, so there's tons of them out there. Still new in box, too. Transferring data, you could use an iOmega zip drive to transfer data. You could also use an iOmega zip drive as a bootable disk. That's another option. They made SCSI variants, they made IDE variants, they made USB variants. Zip drives aren't too expensive. You can probably get one about $40-50 with a disc or two. Get a SCSI version. Just be careful. They made PC versions. If the back of your zip drive on eBay or whatever you're looking at has a picture of a printer, that ain't a SCSI port. That's a parallel printer port. It's not going to work for your Mac. Don't try that. So yeah, if you get a SCSI zip drive, you could use a zip disk as a 100 megabyte hard drive. I've done that on an Apple II. I've done that on a Macintosh. It's not the fastest, but it works. You could write to a zip disk on a G4 Tower that has the zip drive slot right in there, or you could use USB zip drive. That helps too. So that's one way to transfer data. Networking is also another way to transfer data. Once you get your Mac online, booted up rather, using a local talk cable, you could connect two old Macs, just one serial cable, create a very easy network. It's slow, but you could transfer stuff back and forth. Let's say you have a broken floppy drive or something like that. One Mac has a CD drive, one doesn't. You want to share. That's one way you could do that. Ethernet, make an Apple Talk network out of Ethernet. Use some Farallon phone net cables, whatever you got. Make a network. If one of your Macs is newer, maybe you could connect to the internet. Go to Macintosh Guard and download some good games. Transfer them over your network. That'll be fun. Mac OS 10, 10.4, and 10.5, that's Tiger and Leopard. Those were the last ones to really support Apple Talk. So if you're trying to communicate with, let's say, an iMac here that's running 8.6 or Mac OS 9, you want to make sure you have a G3 or a G4 machine, or even a G5 that's running Tiger or Leopard, preferably Tiger. And that has full Apple Talk support. You could actually talk to those machines. If you set up the networking just right, you should be okay. Trina, I guess, says, I have a 9.1 SCSI drive that I'm looking to sell. There you go. Good deal on that. Mike says, best thing to do with classic Macs is get a good external SCSI hard drive. You can move it from machine to machine, even hook it up with an 800K machine, make floppies when you need to. Yeah, the only thing is SCSI is not on the first two Macs. So the Mac 128K, the Mac 512K. The Mac Plus had SCSI. That's where it started. The original Mac 128 and Mac 512 had a special hard drive. So that's a whole other thing. But yeah, generally speaking though, Mike is absolutely correct. An external SCSI hard drive is a great investment. You could usually get an external SCSI case that used to hold a CD drive or a tape drive even, and you can put your own SCSI hard drive or a SCSI to SD adapter in that. That's what I've done. Or the SCSI to SD adapter version 5.2, I believe. It has a header on there. You could actually buy it pre-built, or you could do it yourself. You could just solder on a 25-pin external SCSI port. I've done that to mine. I used a little SCSI cable. Bam, my SCSI to SD adapter is now an external SCSI hard drive. And since Macs were very compatible with SCSI disks, you could boot right off of it, which is pretty cool. Yeah, you could do the same thing with the external CD drive. Use that to boot off of it. SCSI is great like that. Boot off of a SCSI drive externally is great. All right, next thing I want to talk about is, bridge machines. Always helpful. So a machine like this, what I mean by a bridge machine is a machine that has old I/O, old input-output ports, and a new machine that has new ports. So a bridge machine might be one that has a serial port and a SCSI port, but that also has Ethernet and USB. So this PowerBook is a perfect example. Some of your G3 towers, if you had maybe a serial port adapter in it, maybe, or a SCSI card in it, maybe that's a good one too. A lot of the beige machines are perfect bridge Macs, especially some Power Macs. Apple even had a control panel that was a local talk bridge, and what you could do is you could plug in a local talk cable and then plug in Ethernet, and what that Mac would do is it would bridge that connection over the network. So your Macs that were brand new and only had Ethernet could actually talk to the old Macs on the local talk network, which was pretty cool. Yeah, so Jay says his G4 gigabit Ethernet is his bridge machine. That's a good machine. Last but not least, file resource forks and Stuffit Expander. Two things you need in your toolbox. You should have a copy of Stuffit Expander. That's why it's on my desktop right here. Click. Stuffit Expander is a great tool. A lot of the stuff you're going to download from Macintosh Garden was compressed using Stuffit Expander. The reason for that is Macintosh files have what's called a resource fork that holds metadata and other important information about that file, what program it's associated with, all that stuff. If you just email that file, or you just upload that file and download it, or you put it on a PC disk, that resource fork is destroyed or damaged, and it just no longer works. When you bring that file over to a Mac, it doesn't know what it is, because part of that data is missing. So what's important to you to do is compress that file with Stuffit Expander. Stuffit will retain that resource fork data, and the Stuffit Expander document is, I guess, immune to this resource fork information getting screwed up on its own container file. So as Jay was alluding to before, we did some tests. I compressed a file. He opened it up. I think it was in High Sierra. He recompressed, and I was able to open it up on a System 7 Mac. So it worked fine transferring it over FTP, over the internet and stuff like that. So do some research, but get a copy of Stuffit Expander. It's sort of like one of those things where, it's like, it's a poor example, I guess, but like the chicken versus the egg, like you need one of them first. A catch-22, that's the best thing. That's what I was going to be. Catch-22. Stuffit Expander is a catch-22 because you need Stuffit Expander installed, but usually when you download Stuffit Expander, it's compressed. So you can't expand it. Tricks to get it is old Mac Addict or magazine CD-ROMs for the Macintosh. They usually have Stuffit Expander on there because a lot of the software on those demo discs and stuff had Stuffit Expander compressed files. Some later versions of the Mac OS, I think Mac OS 8.5 and up, maybe even earlier, have Stuffit Expander or a deluxe version of that installed. So be sure you have Stuffit Expander. It's a tool that everybody should use. Oh, nice. Demir's 5500 Power Mac setup. Plug it into an Airport Extreme. Has Ethernet. Wow. Yeah, use Apple Talk. That's great. That's a cool setup. And last but not least, there are some Linux and Macintosh Linux and Windows alternatives for handling Macintosh files. MacDrive is one of them. Like I said, there are some convoluted things you can do to try and transfer stuff to maybe a SCSI to SD adapter or a floppy disk using Linux or Windows. I wouldn't recommend it because sometimes that stuff doesn't work, and I haven't personally tried it. But yeah, that's the list I had. So we're pretty much done with what I had to talk about topic-wise. So I'm going to open up to any questions and have some notes to promote stuff. But that's about it. Wow, 2 hours went by fast, and I'm excited this was successful so far. So let's see if you guys have any questions. Feel free to put it in the chat. Dana saying .c files. Yeah, so that's another compression type of a file. .c, self-extracting archive. So those are handy because you don't need Stuff Expander because those are self-extracting. So if you can find stuff to download in that format, that's great. Oh, I remember Dave. Oh, man. That advertisement was on the back of every Macworld and every Mac Addict magazine. It would be like a PC and a Mac, and there would be a big heart or something like that. Yeah, that was before Jaguar, or I think it was Jaguar, when they just had SMB networking built in. So a lot of that headache stuff was no longer needed. Cool. Well, I'm not going to end it just yet, but I just want to say we have another live stream of Mac Yak that's coming up next week. That's November 14th, which is pretty cool. So I'll be hosting that again. I'm going to see if I could get Greg or Mike or one of the other guys to join me. That'll be fun. And then on the 21st, we come back as our group again. So Greg will be all moved and everything. And we'll have everybody join us, which will be cool. So we'll be back to our regular format, and we'll have some cool guests maybe. Who knows what's going to happen. But we'll be celebrating our, near our 50th show, and is it our anniversary too. So, that's exciting. So look forward to that. And, oh, thank you guys. I appreciate it. I had a little hiccup when I first started the show, but glad I got my layers and stuff all sorted. Let's see. Anything else I want to mention here? Even though I called you a criminal, you're not convicted yet. You have to go through due process. We'll see what happens. If that metal detector dings, though, I think you're in trouble. But yeah, so those of you who came from my channel, from Mac84, or saw this on Twitter or Instagram or wherever you saw it, and you came to watch Mac Yak, I hope you enjoyed it. We have a lot of fun doing our podcast here, and it's great to be part of this group. I'm really, really privileged to be part of such an awesome team. Everybody is so knowledgeable and friendly about Mac stuff, and it's really cool just to have a great community like that. So I really would appreciate it if you're here for the first time. Subscribe to Mac Yak, give it a like, give it a thumbs up, all that good stuff, because Mac Yak is a great podcast. I'm happy to be a part of it. I also want to tout, if I could get my cursor over here, that we have a Discord that you should totally join. Let's see if I could get this to come up here. There we go. right here. You should totally join our Discord. We have a great little community there. A lot of people that are in the chat. We usually continue the chat after the show in Discord. So I definitely recommend, if you haven't done that before, download Discord, jump on there. There's a text chat, but there's also a voice chat a bunch of us come into sometimes. So there's a bunch of different channels there. We talk about our show. We talk about older Macs. We talk about things to trade, news, rumors, all that fun stuff. So, oh, thanks, guys. Yeah, please subscribe to Mac Yak if you haven't done so already. So, join our Discord, but hit the like button on Mac Yak, hit subscribe, all that good stuff. Click the little notification bell so you know when we go live. It's every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, so make sure you remember that. But yeah, Discord is a fun thing. You guys should do that. And wow, we're almost on time at 10 o'clock p.m. So yeah, if anybody else has any questions or anything, now would be the time. But other than that, we're gonna wrap it up here. But I appreciate you joining me on my live stream here. I hope it went well. Next time, getting a glass of water because I've been speaking too much. Yeah, so I'm just gonna wait a few seconds in case anybody has any questions or anything. But if not, I guess we'll say goodbye. So yeah, Stickies was fun. You made my stream look like a joke, Steve. Sorry, Greg. That wasn't intentional. And I think that's a good way to end it. So like, subscribe to the Mac Yak channel. Visit my channel, Mac84. Just do a Google search for Mac84 TV. Maybe we'll... Oh, wrong side. I have these little buttons. Maybe we'll do a giveaway or something at some point in time. That'll be fun. But I guess that's about it. So thank you guys for joining. See you on Discord. I'll be on Discord in a bit, so make sure you join that. One of you guys, if you want to put a link to the Discord in the YouTube chat, that'll be cool. And I guess that's about it. So thank you guys for joining me, and I'm going to sign off here. It is now safe to switch off your Macintosh. Have a good night, guys.